Geoverse Part 3 To Live is Human by GeodesicDragon Chapter 1 Prologue. As I stood rooted to the spot, I could feel the sweat pouring down my face. My nerves were on red alert and my heart was pounding in my chest like a sledgehammer. "Geez, mate," a voice to my side said, "you need to relax." "I'm getting married, John," I retorted. "I thought it was normal for the groom to get nervous." John chuckled. "You're getting married to the girl of your dreams," he said. "She loves you, you love her, so get a hold of yourself." Just to make sure he got his point across, he slapped me. I rubbed my cheek and smiled. "You're right," I said. "I don't know why I'm worried. This day is going to be perfect." I repeated these words inside my head again and again, and I felt myself relaxing. I took a few deep breaths as a white unicorn stallion approached me. "Geo," he said, extending a hoof. I shook it firmly. "Shining armor," I replied. "Glad you could make it." "It's my little sister's wedding," he chuckled. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." He patted my shoulder and entered the church to mingle with the other guests. While waiting, I found myself looking at the decorations courtesy of a certain party pony. Because Twilight was getting married, Pinky had decided on an everything-must-be-her-colors theme. Everywhere I looked I saw purple balloons and the occasional pink streamer to match the highlight in Twilight's mane and tail. I hadn't seen Twilight for a few days now, owing to the fact that equestrians shared the bride and groom must not see each other until the day of the wedding rule we had on our own world. "Geo, John," a commanding yet gentle voice said. We turned around to see Princess Celestia with her sister. "Princesses," we said together and bowed. "So it's a big day at last." I grinned and nodded. "I can't wait," I replied. "I've been waiting for this for so long." "We just came to tell you that we are ready to begin," Luna said. "If you'd like to follow us, please." Both princesses trotted back into the hall, followed closely by John and I. As we walked, I took a few deep breaths and fought the urge to shout out in joy. The wedding march soon started, and the doors at the far end swung open. The Cutie Crusaders were first in, performing the same flower girl routine they had at Shining Armor and Princess Cadence's wedding. Their grins were obvious, even with a basket of flowers in their mouths. Twilight soon followed. I was transfixed. She was wearing her dress from the Grand Galloping Gala, and her mane had been styled into a fashion that rivaled even rarities. As she stood by my side, my mouth was hanging open slightly. "You look fantastic," I said. Twilight blushed and smiled. "Thanks," she replied. "You look good in that suit. Rarity really did a great job with it." She motioned for me to come down to her level. I obliged, and she got up on her hind legs, placing her forehoofs on my shoulders. "Though it would look better on the floor," she whispered, biting her lower lip and giving me a sultry grin. "That's funny," I whispered back with an equally sultry grin, "because I was thinking the same thing about your dress." Before we could continue, John coughed loudly. "I know what you're thinking," he said with a deadpan stare, "but you can't do it here. Wait for the honeymoon." Twilight and I exchanged a sheepish glance. I stood up while she got back on all fours. "Men, fillies, and gentlecolts," Celestia's voice filled the church. "We are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Twilight Sparkle to the human Geo." John stepped forward with the rings. One was bigger than the other, as it was designed to go around Twilight's horn, while the other was for my finger. Celestia levitated the rings with her magic. "The two of you have been through so much just to be together," she said. "The commitment you share with each other is wonderful, and your love is true and honest." She turned to Twilight. "Twilight Sparkle, do you take this human to be your husband?" "Yes, I do," she replied, suppressing a squeal. Celestia turned to me. "And do you, Geo, take this unicorn to be your wife?" "Hell yes, I do," I replied. "In that case," Celestia said, as she used her magic to put the rings on, "I now pronounce you man and wife. May you both find everlasting love together." With those words I picked Twilight up and kissed her as passionately and for as long as I could. The church exploded into cheering as we finally tore apart from each other. Hoisting her onto my shoulders, we began to leave the church. As we went, I saw Twilight's parents, who each gave me an approving nod and smile. I saw her brother, who saluted. I saw Dr. Saru, who was engrossed in conversation with Pinkie Pie. He saw me and waved. I returned the greeting. Leaving the church, I saw a lot of ponies had turned up to offer their congratulations. This touched my heart, as most of them hadn't even been invited. "Wow," I said as I looked at the sea of well-wishers. "You wouldn't see people doing this where I come from." Twilight kissed the top of my head. "Welcome to Equestria," she cooed in my ear. I smiled and tilted my head so I could kiss her back. At the bottom of the stairs leading to the church, a carriage was waiting to take us to our honeymoon in Philadelphia. The chauffeur opened the door, offering his congratulations at the same time, and I placed Twilight inside before climbing in myself. The cheering outside rapidly decreased in volume as the door was closed. Soon we were moving. "And so begins our new life," I said as I stroked my wife's mane. She nuzzled my chest and sighed contentedly. "Here's to us spending eternity together," she replied. The rest of the journey was spent in silence as we enjoyed each other's company. The trees swayed in the breeze as a group of men surveyed their surroundings with a wary eye. "I knew that crackpot was up to something," said one of them. "This just proves it." "I would never have believed it," said another, "without seeing it for myself. I guess our agent was telling the truth after all." "What are your orders, Prime Minister?" said the first man. "Who knows what Dr. Sorrow has uncovered?" the Prime Minister replied. "Until we know what lives here, nobody is to leave the area. Is that understood?" The group nodded as the Prime Minister turned to the first man. "Graham, I want you to call a meeting of my advisors," he said. "Right away, Peter," Graham replied. "Any particular ones?" "Until further notice," Peter retorted. "I am treating this new world as a potential threat. To that end." He paused for a moment and sighed. "This is now a matter for the military."